Hey creeps, it's Horror Free For All. For those of you that have been with me on this channel since I was called Goosebumps Completionist and were here when I merged Goosebumps Completionist with my other horror channel called Horror Free For All, that I've aptly adopted that name over here now as well. You might know that I was doing some series over there that I haven't done in a long time that I'm trying to resurrect. And one series that I've been wanting to get back to more than any is a series I affectionately call Hall of Creeps. Now, this is a series where I look at full length feature movies that, in my opinion, feel, fit, and would excel in one of my favorite horror franchises ever made, if not my favorite, Creepshow. This movie we're going to be looking at today to bring back Hall of Creeps came out in the year 2019. I think straight to streaming first, and then it went and aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was actually produced and funded by Warner Brothers themselves. It was written by Jed Elinoff and Scott Thomas, and it was directed by Danishka Esterhazy. And the film in question is the Banana Splits movie. Now, some people might be like, the Banana Splits had a movie. Yes. If you're unaware, the Banana Splits was a 60s show produced and released by Hanna-Barbera. It was a group of four, plushy creatures played by humans in mascot costumes, and would sometimes get cartoon adaptations alongside the IP as well. And they're mainly known for doing, live on stage recording programming for kids and families where they would sing songs, do skits, play games, you name it, all under the umbrella of entertainment. And supposedly, this is way before my time, mind you. I was born in the early 90s. So, the show was really popular, I guess, in the 60s and 70s, and ran through syndication in the 80s where it stayed relevant. And then I guess, to my knowledge, it kind of fizzled out. And that is probably the least bizarre tidbit of history with the Banana Splits, at least in regards to how this movie got made. So, for those of you that aren't in the know, I just learned this today after watching this movie for the first time ever, that this movie here was conceived after Warner Brothers commissioned a script to get made for a particular franchise that I guess a lot of people on the internet compare this film to, which is the Five Nights at Freddy franchise. Now, so the story goes, the original script that Warner Brothers drafted for Five Nights at Freddy's was not up to par for Scott Cawthon and the people behind getting the Five Nights at Freddy's movie made. So they jumped ship and went over to Blumhouse, and Warner Brothers was left with the script, and they decided to, I guess, look around and see what IPs they had to, I guess, try to put something out that they could use, or I guess readapt the script for. Now, I don't know if Jed Elinoff and Scott Thomas, who, by the way, Scott Thomas was one of the main people behind the Haunting Hour television series. I don't know if they took certain plot beats, beat for beat, from that original Five Nights at Freddy's script and put it into here. I couldn't tell you. I haven't read the original script, but that's as far as the information has taken me. Now, I will say on personal record here, I remember when Dollar Tree years ago used to sell Blu-rays and DVDs, and there was one drop, I think, in 2020, maybe 2021, during the time of COVID, and they got a bunch of movies in, but like when I'm saying bunch, I mean multiple copies of like two particular movies. One was Critters Attack, which is a part of the Critters franchise, and the other was the Banana Splits movie. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, I didn't care, and I didn't buy it. Only until recently when I checked out a movie called Mr. Crockett from Hulu, and I made a review on my former channel, somebody that I'm also in another Discord with recommended that I check out the Banana Splits movie, so I had it in the back of my head, and I've always hunted for this movie whenever I'm out at mom and pop video stores or big chains, and I just never found it. Till today, when I went to like a random FYE that's about 30 minutes away that happened to be nearby, and they had a copy in there, and I bit the bullet and paid $10 for it. So here we are. I watched it, and immediately it reminded me of something that Creepshow would do. Now, what that entails? Well, let's talk about the movie here. So, the movie is basically about this 9-year-old kid named Harley. Harley has a 19-year-old brother named Austin, who I guess is his half-brother. And Austin has a tragic backstory involving his own father that we learn later in the story of what happened to him. And he has an estranged relationship with his mother, who's also Harley's mother, and his stepfather. Now, very early on, it's pretty evident that Harley's father is having an affair on his mother with his secretary at his job. And it's Harley's birthday, and I guess the mom in Austin, the older brother, decided to surprise young Harley here with some tickets to go see Harley's favorite television show, which is the Banana Splits show. Now, in the movie universe here, in the Banana Splits movie, unlike our reality where I guess the show went off in the 70s and just went on to rerun syndication throughout the remainder of its time while it was on TV, I guess it ended up later in Cartoon Network too, but that's beyond the point. Banana Splits actually never went off the air. So it's been continuing all this time and has essentially outlasted every other show on this production lot to the point where it's monopolized the main production house, which is house number 1, for years and years and years. So when the family arrived there to, I guess, experience the Banana Split show for Harley's birthday, they have an interaction with the person in the front of the gate letting them in. And he makes a snide comment to Harley when he's asking him questions about the Banana Split show. And he says that sometimes the animatronics come out and walk around the lot like they're sentient or something. Which is, I guess, supposed to scare Harley, but his mom is like, you know what? Don't think anything of it. Mind you, it's not just the family that's here to... Harley has decided to bring his good friend, who's a girl. I don't remember the girl's name. I want to say her name is Zoe, but I'm probably wrong. But I'm just going to lean with Harley's friend for her descriptor. She is also along for the ride, so they don't want the kids to get scared before they go to see the show. And when they get into the line to enter the building, we get to meet some side characters. Of course, we get introduced to a stagehand who I guess is the production assistant, and the sound and light person that's in charge of the music volume and instructing the light for the show, looking upon the patrons in line. And we get to meet a couple of patrons that we're going to get to know in the movie. Particularly, the two big ones here are a couple who are, I guess, humongous fans of the Banana Split show. And it's kind of like a kink for them, which is really bizarre. But yeah, it's in the movie, and they're here to indulge in that. And then we have a father and daughter duo who the father is hell-bent on introducing his daughter to, I guess, the producer or the person behind the show to get her on television, which is a running gag with him and her for the remainder of the movie. And also, we get to meet some other characters as well. 3 particular ones that you'll get to know are the host of the Banana Split show, who is depicted to be a drunk and pretty much hates being on the show that he's on. A producer who's been working on the show for 6 years, and she gets some bad news from her boss, who is the other third character that we'll see, I guess, not throughout the movie, but at points of the movie when he is there. that the Banana Split show, after all these years, has finally been canceled. And this is going to be the last time that the Banana Split show is going to be filmed in front of an audience. And this will be officially the last episode that ever airs. So when this happens, some news trickles down. And we see that potentially the creator of the Banana Splits animatronics, yes, in this version, after all these years, at some point, the Banana Splits actors who used to, I guess, facilitate the mascot costumes ceased to happen, and a person that was hired to, I guess, make animatronics with the mascot costumes came in and did so. These versions of the Banana Splits are fully animatronic. He hears some news, and from then on, while he's programming, or I guess charging up the animatronics, there's a malfunction that happens, or I guess something that triggers within them to shut off their failsafe, where they can, I guess, have free range to roam and do whatever they want, which means that people are probably in a world of hurt because of this news. And we see pretty early on that the person who runs the show is pretty much taken off screen to an undisclosed location for a good amount of the movie. Once the host of the show is informed that the show is canceled, he's belated in it and enjoying himself, so he partakes in getting super drunk before he gets on stage to entertain the studio audience. And much to the chagrin of the stagehand and the production assistant, they're really upset with him that he decided to behave this way. So the show goes underway, and we see the host drunk, carrying out his duty. We see the stagehand and the producers doing their thing. We see the studio audience eating it up, trying to have fun, partaking in the games, the sing-alongs, the spin the wheel stuff, you name it. And then the show comes to a wrap. And once the show comes to a wrap, certain studio audience members get called to go backstage and meet the titular characters, the Banana Splits. And because of a conversation that Austin, the older brother, had with a stagehand that I haven't gone over, but it's a very quick scene, the stagehand decided to extend an olive branch and invite Harley and his friend backstage to meet the Banana Splits for his birthday. And when that happens, we also see that the couple gets chosen to go backstage, or I guess that maybe they had backstage passes. It's kind of irrelevant. And then, of course, the father and daughter duo also get called to go backstage. But we also see some drama unfolding where Harley's dad, who's having an affair on Harley's mom, is sneaking off, and then the two have a confrontation and a big old fight that separates them for the remainder of the movie. We see what happens, which kind of kicks off the events that's going to transpire the rest of the movie. A little before that, but it kind of feeds into the context here. The host is confronted for his behavior immediately after the show. And let's just say one of the Banana Splits animatronics does him in with some violent gore comeuppance for his behavior. And after that transpires, the animatronics show up backstage, and the petitioners who are chosen to come backstage are invited back there. And the stagehand is trying to take pictures, but the father and daughter, who are, I guess, are after the couple who get their pictures taken first, decide to storm off to go find a producer or find the creator of the show or the head person of the show so he can get her daughter onto it. And this distracts the stagehand enough to have to leave everybody else behind along with the animatronics. And from there, the couple splits off and goes and does their own thing so they can explore the warehouse area of the production studio and all that. And then, of course, the kids are left with their older brother, Austin. And the kids realize that one of the animatronics is missing. And we find out that one of the animatronics has gone off to jump into the Banana Mobile, the yellow car that the Banana Splits drive, to come after a certain person. There's another another character that decides to go off and fuck around with the couple, and we see what becomes of that in a brutal, violent nature. And then there's another one that decides to go fuck around with the producer, the stagehand, and the father and daughter duo. And we see in multiple ways this particular, or I guess this particular animatronic and another particular animatronic that comes on later into the fold and what they do to these characters. Without going into too many specifics on what exactly happens to them, that's essentially the middle of the movie. Meanwhile, you have the mom, one particular survivor within one of the duos that I mentioned, the older brother Austin, and I guess the kids are kind of left to the elements of the warehouse. And the kids, when I say kids, I mean Harley, his friend, and the little girl from the father-daughter duo, are essentially abducted and taken into the animatronic makers' warehouse place, where there's kind of a bombshell revealed that the warehouse is kind of like a prison that's holding the kids hostage for the remainder of the night. And it's revealed from the creator of the animatronics that he created these things out of love, and they have nothing else to look forward to. So he thinks that they're acting this way because they're upset that the show is done and they're supposed to bring people happiness. But the kids see that it's bringing people pain and beg the creator to stop it, and we see what becomes of that. And then for the mom and the older brother Austin and a fellow girl, they're going through their own ordeal trying to figure out how to go about finding the kids so they can get out. And they come across the owner, or I guess the owner of the show that's been taken out of the story. And we see what becomes of him in a brutal, and I mean brutal fashion. And once that is over, we see a climax ensue with the remaining survivors, a big revelation of what's going on in this building, what exactly happened to the studio audience beforehand with the animatronics, the scope of the extent of what's been going on for the past few hours that these people that were taken backstage have been going through is widened, and it's revealed that it's much bigger than they thought. There needs to be some action to take care of these animatronics to get out alive, and that may or may not succeed for these characters. And we see by the end there's a twist with a particular character that I don't want to spoil, that I guess kind of snaps during the movie, and it's implied that maybe, just maybe, this phenomenon isn't over and the story fades to black. So off the bat, I want to say, or I guess lead off with why I think this movie really reminds me of Creepshow. You know, Creepshow to me, at least in recent years, has kind of opened my eyes to the idea that existing IPs can be brought into its franchise. Biggest example that a lot of people tend to know, if you've watched the Creepshow television series, is that Night of the Living Dead by George Romero has been homaged at least twice in the franchise, and one particular episode is actually a quote-unquote prequel story to Night of the Living Dead. The story itself originated from a Night of the Living Dead anthology book adapted to the franchise, which essentially made Night of the Living Dead a Creepshow extension movie. Same thing could be applied with another episode called Night of the Living Late Show, where the classic 70s horror movie starring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee called The Horror Express was essentially made the main focus of an entire two-part episode, where a character got to go inside of the movie The Horror Express and experience the film along with the characters, making that movie also an extension, a Creepshow thing. And I've mentioned in the past that I'm well open armed about inviting existing things into the Creepshow IP. I brought up Sonya Blue, which is essentially a female version of Blade, written by Nancy A. Collins. I would love to see her brought into the Creepshow franchise as like an anti-hero character. The Banana Splits, being a Hanna-Barbera property, I think I'd also welcome into the Creepshow franchise. And honestly, if this said Creepshow presents the Banana Splits movie, I'd be open arms and accept this movie as a part of the franchise. Now, Creepshow is known for its schlock. It's known for being over the top, but it's also known for its substance. It's also known for having themes underwoven in the story. Morality plays as a lesson to be the point of the story. But it's also known for being wildly creative and out there as well. Now, this movie is wild and creative. It's over the top and schlocky. When it comes to its themes, if it had any themes to be had, it is the theme with our main character, Harley, who is technically holding on to a show that he is kind of growing out of because he's aging out of it. And we even see his parents kind of question him in the beginning of the movie of why he's so obsessed with this show. And it's easy to pick up on the idea that Harley is holding on to some sort of young innocence with the show out of familiarity and out of genuine love for these characters. And as he's gotten older, we see that confliction is possibly coming through for him in the story when he's up against the scenarios that he sees with these animatronics going on in the film, where he realizes that they were created to bring people happiness, and he admits to people that he loves them, but if they're hurting people, then maybe it's time to let them go. And while Harley's never really actually hurt in the story, and maybe it doesn't quite fit to the theme that I was addressing about, holding on to something that keeps you youthful, you can still see the correlation there for Harley's character in that he's always going to hold on to these memories and the nostalgia of loving the franchise that he's literally grown up on. But consider this night the final farewell, and for his character, him being the main one at least, his farewell to the characters is also everybody else's farewell to the characters. But for him, there's more symbology behind that. He's moving on to the next stage of his life. And for that, I think it works. It does have that comic book love letter feel where the scenes feel like when you build up the tension, you get that over the top schlock going on. All you need is some word bubbles, the red and blue lighting from the Creepshow movies, and you're pretty much good to go here. And I will be upfront. One last thing that it kind of reminds me of with at least Creepshow is how small scale the story is. Most of the time, Creepshow stories are small scale. Yeah, you can have some scope in terms of like time frame, where some stories in the franchise, particularly in the TV show, have a bit of a time skip in the future to provide a bigger narrative or some time for the characters to stew, and we see some evolution and some progression from, I guess, the remainder of the story beforehand's climax to get a sense of how their character went from point A to point B in the story. Sometimes the franchise has stories like that. This one takes place all in one night, like most Creepshow stories tend to do. Yes, some people might be like, well, isn't this like a slasher movie? And I would be kind of half and half on that sentiment. Yes, this is a slasher. Creepshow is not known for slashers. To me, I think it's more of like a creature feature that just so happens to be a bunch of animatronic puppets using instruments to kill people. Some people, I think, on the internet said that this is kind of like a Saw movie if Five Nights at Freddy's and the banana splits had a baby. Okay, I kind of see your point there. But yeah, it all depends on how you want to frame it. I don't care. To me, I still think that it has that creature feature element to it. And it's so ridiculous up front that the disbelief is already put there at the door, dare I say, like most Creepshow stories, which are some of my personal favorites, which are the ones that obviously can never happen in real life, but the premise is so out there and outlandish that you have to put disbelief at the door, but the story is there and the themes are there to counterbalance those things and make it easier to put disbelief at the door and buy into what the story is trying to tell you in terms of its points and its messages. So yeah, on the movie's own merit though, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of wonky in some areas. I've noticed that, when I was watching some reviews on the film, people were complaining about like the first 30 minutes of it being kind of slow. But in my opinion, I think the first 30 minutes are probably the best run of the movie, because once we get after that point, the movie starts to feel like it's speed running to, beef up some kills, beef up, the body count a little bit. And that's where it starts to kind of fall apart. The caveat to that, though, is if you're here for the schlock and the gore, this movie is 98% practical. When I say 98%, the only thing of CGI I notice in this movie is CGI fire. But even then, the brutality, the gore, the practical effects that come after that make up for that 2 seconds of CGI fire. Look, the effects in this movie are brilliant for its budget. They are brutal. This movie has tons of bloodshed. You got people's arms getting ripped off. You got bodies being cut in half. You got people being essentially crucified. and I'm not kidding. It goes there with it. And when you see these things happen and the kills happen, every shot is on frame for you to see, and it does not shy away of going there to go that extra mile to show you the guts, to show you, the skin dangling off limbs. It is gross. It's not afraid to show you burn scars and boils. That's gross too. It's really effective with that. So that's the caveat and the cop-out to the messy editing, like I said. But to me, if we had any negatives to say about the movie other than just the premise being ridiculous, which I don't necessarily find as a negative, it's that after that first 30 minutes, it becomes a speed run, hodgepodge kind of mess of a movie. Which, to be frank, I will say that aside from that, there's really no discernible explanation or reason that I can come up with that makes the phenomenon of this movie make any sort of logical sense. Now, I know. This is a movie about animatronics coming to life. Whoop-de-doo. Look, I get it. The malfunction on the computer and them overhearing that the show is getting canceled probably triggered some sort of fail-safe mechanism in the machines. I get that to a degree. But the lengths that these animatronics go and the technology capabilities is never expounded on once. It's never expounded on how they can just disappear in front of people with nobody seeing them. As a matter of fact, there's a scene, now that I'm thinking about it, this shows you how messy this is. When the scene happens where the creator of the show or the runner of the show gets abducted, we see a particular animatronic right there. The very next frame, the animatronics are all on stage together in front of the live studio audience. And there's no context of how that came to be. There's no context of, did the show just start? None of that. It just goes from this immediately right into the show. That's what we're dealing with here. When it comes to characters, the characters are all cardboard cutouts, minus the main character kid and maybe the mom character for being some semblance of deep compared to the rest of the cast. The rest fulfill an archetype. The rest are kind of annoying at times, or they're treated like running gags. And some characters hardly have any personality other than to be the punchline of a joke. Which, to be frank, Creepshow does have characters like that too. But for this movie being like, I don't know how long this thing is. It felt long. It was 89 minutes. This movie, because of the wonky, hobbled pace after the first 30 minutes, the characters being whatever for the most part, and I guess the overall lack of explaining anything, the movie felt like it was like almost 2 hours long. I felt kind of compelled to take 2 breaks while watching the movie, and that's just because I wasn't necessarily bored. It was just me trying to process what I've experienced and trying to come up with what's actually going on. Constructively, narratively, performance-wise, even budget-wise, I can see why most people don't think that this movie is objectively good. And if I'm being honest, I have to echo that sentiment. But for me personally, because this itch to scratch that I was kind of looking for, and I had fun with it at least, I was willing to forgive the movie's problems. So, all said and done, when it comes to the Banana Splits movie here, is this movie a so bad it's good horror movie? I'd say so. It might not be that way for everyone, to be honest, but for me, it strangely worked. My ceiling for so bad it's good horror movies, though, is a 7 out of 10 or 3.5 out of 5 stars. And honestly, that's where I'm going to put this movie. It's not going to be that high for everyone. I see on places like Letterboxd, it's pretty divisive. Some people really love and admire it. Some people see the charm in it. Some people think it's really dumb or a really bad Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff, or that if this was supposed to be the original idea of the Warner Brothers Five Nights at Freddy's movie, they're glad that Blumhouse picked it up. Whatever. I'm just kind of glad that Hollywood took a chance on something like this. Taking an old kids show that's gone relatively forgotten and unnoticed for so long to try to bring it to a modern audience and reinvent it in like a horror setting was a fun idea. I probably never will watch the actual Banana Split show. Some people out there in the comment section probably grew up watching this show. I guarantee you my dad probably watched it when he was a kid. I have no interest in watching it, but I like the novelty of it. And what blows my mind is that Hanna-Barbera Productions actually licensed this for Warner Brothers to make, which blows my mind. And we live in the reality where this movie got made. It's insane. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Banana Splits movie. Let me know down in the comment section if you've seen this movie before. Do you love it? Do you hate it? And also, if you have any movies out there that you think feel like the Creepshow franchise, let me know down in the comment section. I might check it out and make a review on it at some point down the line. Until next time, y'all, take care.